Christian. So tell me, what's new since last time, since our last lesson together?
So what is new? I could say, okay, as I said, I told you, just I've started again going back to work.
Oh,
So
yes, that's right.
restaurants open.
Mm, mm.
I've been doing double for the last 4 days, I think.
Wow. A lot of work then.
It's a lot of work to do. It's a lot of work. So they are not sure if they will open as usual. We are closing
Hmm.
early today. We
Ah,
At least this week we are closing like at 2 hours before.
yes.
And they have to check. They have to see the sales for the next week. And
Yes.
then
Hmm.
uh, just to choose if they will call more people,
Yes.
more staff, or and if they wanna close as usual, as used to be as
Yes.
before.
Okay, as it used to be before. So we
Mhm.
don't say as used to be before. We
I
say
used to be
as it used to be before.
as it used to be. Yes. Okay. Yep.
That's right. That's referring to the situation that uh, was happening before. So you always have to use the it because you have to refer to something. So
Exactly.
it's as
Hmm.
something which used to be before. You cannot just say as before. Well, of
Okay.
course, you could say as before,
Hmm.
uh, but then you don't need to use it if you're
Okay.
just saying
I can say as before, just as before.
yes. Again,
Okay. Okay. All
to
right.
make it simpler, you don't actually need to use the whole expression of as it used to be before. If you just say, well, it's a situation as before, so
Hmm.
it's a situation that happened before, and therefore that makes it even shorter. And obviously, the shorter the better, really.
As you said, keep it short, keep it simple.
That's right, KISS. That
Exactly.
is the mnemonic, and it means, therefore, as we said last time, keep it
Keep it
short
short, keep
and
it simple.
simple. And that way, you have the maximum amount of power in your speaking and also in your writing when you're writing English, because then your words are not diluted with lots of other words which are not
Hmm.
necessary. And then the
That's true.
message is really direct, has a lot of impact. And that's the most powerful way to speak and to write.
Thank you, Ward.
You're ever so welcome, Christian. Okay, so remind me, what did we do last time in our last lesson together?
Let me see. Now I have all the things in my job in my head now.
Hmm.
um, we
Oh,
were talking
yes,
about
about the passive and active vocabulary and
exactly,
how
yeah,
to transfer the passive vocabulary into the active vocabulary and the differences between reading and writing on the one hand, which is the non-spoken English, and then the
yes, that's true.
speaking
Yes.
and listening on the other hand, which is to do with spoken English.
Hmm.
So that's what we talked about last time, if I remember rightly. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. You remember
Excellent.
well, actually.
Yes, by grace, of course. Always by grace. So, what would you like us to talk about this time, Christian? What subject or topic would you like us to talk about?
If you help me with the topic, I don't mind. I prefer you choose the topic so
Sure.
you can surprise I can get surprised by new vocabulary.
Okay. Now, it's always best to avoid the word get, like when you said,
Yes,
I
true.
can get
Yes, yes,
surprised.
yes.
Did I
And
explain to you that? Yes?
most of the times I try to avoid it
You,
because you said the in
ah,
2 lessons ago. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
explained
Get
to
it.
you. Mm-hmm.
It's like you told me the get is the I know it's not a lazy word, but the word, but
It's like a junk word, like junk
junk word.
food doesn't have
Exactly.
much content, and junk words don't have much content either. And they're best avoided and replaced by more meaningful words of high
Mm-hmm.
quality, which are more expressive and communicative, and which can therefore give you more meaning in what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good that I explained that to you last time. Now, you said most of the times, but in fact, this is an expression where it's actually not times like something that's countable, one time, two times, three times, but rather talking about time in general, like most of the time, like when we say time flies, you see, we're talking about time in general. So that's the
Yes,
way you would say it in this case. You wouldn't say most of the times, but you would
most
refer
of
to
the
time
time.
in general. That's right. And you would say
Mm-hmm.
most of the time. That is correct.
Thank you, Walter.
Absolutely. You're ever so welcome, Christian. So, I don't know if I sent you in one of my previous lessons with you the link to the list of articles and the list of questions, the 350 good questions and the 100 best articles. Did I send you that before, Christian?
I have both of them.
Excellent. Well, that could be quite useful for choosing a topic. I think last time we were reading an article, if I remember rightly,
Mm-hmm.
out of the 100 best articles, and we haven't yet done one of the 350 good questions to ask. So,
Yes.
which would you prefer for this time? An article or a question?
Oh, let's do the questions.
Yes,
Let's
good
see.
idea. Excellent. So, well, you have quite a lot of questions to choose from, so you're like
Mm-hmm.
spoilt for choice. Have you heard that expression before?
Spoil for choice. No.
Okay. So when you're spoilt for choice, it means that you have so much choice. You know, it's like a child who's spoiled because he's been given too many toys. Well,
Yes.
here it's like when you're given so much choice, you can also, in a sense, be spoiled because you don't know what to choose. There is so much choice that you're like in a situation where it's difficult to make up your mind to know
Yes.
what to choose. Yes, like you're overwhelmed with all the choice, with
Overwhelmed.
so many choices.
Overwhelmed. Yeah.
So I'll let you have a look at the different questions, and as soon
Yeah.
as you see one that's interesting that you would like us to talk about, then let me know what is the question number, and then I can
Okay.
directly see the question. Yes.
Sure, Walter. I think that just I will say a random number.
Oh
So, for
yes, random number.
example,
That's good. Yes.
I would say maybe 71. Let's see.
71.
Yes, what is it in 71?
Well, that's an
So,
interesting question. I'll let you
you say
read it.
what goal do you think humanity is not focused enough on achieving?
Wow, that is a very profound question and very subjective because obviously everybody will have their own idea concerning
Yes.
that. So tell me, what would be your idea concerning that?
The first things that came to my mind now is
Hmm.
maybe do something about the plastic, maybe.
Oh, yes, that's true. Plastic is very bad for the environment because it's
Mm-hmm.
not biodegradable. Biodegradable, yes. So that's
Biodegradable.
true. That is a real complication as far as pollution is concerned because it pollutes the environment. So, what would you say could be a possible solution? What do you think humanity could possibly do about this plastic situation?
Um, so early in the morning to think about this now, right
Oh,
now.
I know. I mean, it's
um,
called remaking the world. Have you ever heard of that expression?
which one can you say again, please?
Remaking the world or redesigning the world.
Remaking the world. Oh
Remaking,
no.
that means making it again.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either remake the world or you can redesign the world
Or
or both.
redesign.
Yes, or both actually. So first you design it differently, and then you reconstruct it. You make it again differently. So that
Mm-hmm.
is an expression, and it's true. As it's early in the morning for you, just woken up, it's not easy to change the whole world uh, just with a few simple thoughts and words so early in the morning. So uh, this is quite challenging for you, I can imagine.
Without a coffee before.
Oh, yes, and especially if you haven't had a coffee before, then that will be especially difficult, I can imagine.
So let's see what we could do. So I know that. So
So the question isn't what
mm-hmm.
we could do, it would be what could we do? This is a
What could
question
we
of
do?
word order and sentence structure. So you should say, what could we do?
What could we do? Mm-hmm.
Because if you say what we could do, it's like not a question, but like a sentence saying, what we could do is firstly this, and secondly that, and finally something else. So
Mm-hmm.
when you say what we could do, it's just a statement. It's not a question. Now, the question is that you're asking yourself, what could we do? Because you know that the words could we and we could are inverted. When it's a statement, it's we could, just the normal way of saying it. First the subject, then the verb. But when it's a question, the structure changes, the word order changes. And so we have could we with the verb first and then the subject,
And then the
and
subject.
it's that way round in a question. You see the difference there,
Yeah. Yeah.
Christian? Okay.
The structure.
The
Yeah.
structure changes.
The
That's
structure
right.
changes.
The word order changes. Right.
So what would we do?
What could we do? That's right. That's the
What could we
question.
do? What could we
Yes.
do
Hmm.
to change the use of the plastic in the world?
Yes.
I would say
You
by
don't have to say the use of the plastic because
the
we're
use
talking
of
about
plastic
plastic in general.
in
That's right.
general.
So we would talk about the use of plastic
Plastic.
in general. Because if you say the use of the plastic, it's like you're referring to a specific
A
plastic and
specific plastic.
only
Yeah.
that particular one without taking into account all the other different types of plastics that
Uh-huh.
exist, if you see what I mean. But here
Yep.
we want to talk about plastic in general because we want to deal with all of them at once, if possible.
Hmm. Okay. So I would say
Hmm.
um, recycling is already
Yes,
working in most of the countries, I think.
most,
Uh, in
most. That's right.
most on the of the countries.
That's
Of
true.
course,
Mm.
there are countries, undeveloped countries. I could
Yes,
say
that's right. Absolutely.
undeveloped countries
Hmm.
that they don't have a law for, or at least
A
people are
law,
not
a law. Yes.
a law, or people is no
Not no. People is
conscious.
a plural word,
Okay,
so you need
people
to
are.
say people are.
Oh my god, today I'm failing all of them. um, People are not conscious about recycling in those countries, so
That's true. Yes,
they
it's a
have no control.
Yes, absolutely. So obviously here it's a question of education. We need to educate the populations of all those countries so that they can also start recycling. That would be the ideal solution, obviously.
But then the other problem is what can we do with all that plastic that has been recycled?
Ah, yes, of course. That's also
That
another question. Hmm.
so, mm, because if you burn it, it's gonna
That is
contaminate.
exactly, that's going to cause even more pollution because
Exactly.
plastic that's burning is actually very toxic. You know that.
Yeah.
It's very
The other
bad.
one is if you put in the land, you contaminate
The
the
land,
soil, the
the
ground.
soil. That's right.
If you put it out of the planet, you started
Hmm.
to put how do you call that? I think is space trash or space.
Yes, you could call it space trash. I mean, that's possibly the name that's used for it. When you send it like into space, like on a rocket, but obviously, if you do that, uh, you won't be polluting the Earth, but you'll be polluting space,
Exactly.
which is a big place. But if it becomes very polluted, then that could actually be dangerous for some spaceships because then rockets and space stations, if they collided uh, and were had a collision with the debris of the space trash,
Mm-hmm.
it could actually damage the space rocket or the space station. Do you see what I mean?
Yes,
Christian?
yes, I see.
Yes. So that is quite dangerous, actually, doing that.
So the one, I'm not sure right now. I'm right now in a
Hmm.
condition of sleeping. About get about have another solution, maybe I could say. And
Another
I was
solution
going to say to get, but I don't want to say to get, to have another
to have
to
another
find
solution, to find
find
another
another
solution.
solution to find another solution.
Mm.
But example, I read like 2 weeks
Hmm.
ago
Yes.
something about a scientific who discovered a kind of plant
So a
that
scientist, you're talking about a
a
person,
scientist,
test. Yes, that's
a
right.
scientist.
Because
My God.
scientific is like an adjective, like
Yes.
a scientific experiment that's describing the type of experiment. But the actual
Hmm.
person who works with science is called a scientist.
Yes, yes. And I knew.
you
Okay, a
you knew
scientist.
this. You
I
knew
knew.
this.
I just still on bed, I think. Sorry,
It's
Walter.
some mistakes that can happen, when we're speaking. Even when we know what it is, we can sometimes make mistakes of,
Yeah.
a moment's lack of attention or a moment's lack of concentration. So that's all right. That's understandable.
So this scientist
Yes,
discovered a kind of plant that is be able to
a plant
a
which is
plant
able to.
is able to is able to feed itself from
Mm,
plastic.
really? Wow.
Yes.
So
Uh, the only problem is that
yes.
it takes time for the plant,
Oh, of course, it
and the
must take a
huge
long time.
amount of plastic that we have
Mm,
in the world,
yes.
um, the plant this kind of plant cannot deal with it.
These kind of plants,
The
plural,
plant,
yes, these kind of plants. So we have to say plural because there's more than one.
okay, this
These
kind of plants,
kinds of plants, yes.
hmm
You could say
they
singular, of course, but then it has to be all singular. This
okay,
kind of plant, if it's all singular, or these kinds of plants when it's all
for
plural.
plants. Hmm.
Yes. Hmm.
Uh, but it's one, at least it's one step, one more step.
Oh, of course, exactly. It might be useful in a solution which has several different aspects to it. Maybe the final solution will be a combination of a lot of different partial solutions. And when you put it all together, you have a total solution, if you see what I mean.
Yes. For example, as well, as
Mhm.
you said before, to educate
As
people.
I said before, not as I say
As you
before,
said.
because this was in the past. So, as I said before, yes.
So, for example, as you said before,
Oh, as you said before, that's right. Yes.
um, so one of the solutions as well, one of the
Yes.
solutions is
Yes.
to educate people.
Yes, absolutely. To
So
recycle.
to recycle, for example,
Yes.
in Mexico, in
Yes.
one of the small villages,
Mm-hmm.
one
Mm-hmm.
of its small villages,
Mm-hmm.
um, they with just not many people in them.
We don't say no
People,
many, we say not
not many,
many. We always have to
not
pronounce
many,
the T clearly in the word not. So it's not
not
many. Yes.
with not many people
Mm-hmm.
in it.
Yes.
They have started to
Yes.
refuse
Mm-hmm.
to use plastic
Mm-hmm.
in their daily days. I could say,
Everyday life. So
in
instead of
everyday
say
life.
daily days, because that kind of repeats the word day twice, once day
Okay,
and then once daily, if you say in their either day to day lives,
day to day.
or yes, you can
Okay,
say day to day lives,
okay,
or
perfect.
daily lives, or everyday lives. So there's three
Okay,
ways that you can say it.
so in their everyday lives,
Yes,
or in their day to day lives,
right.
um, and they have started to oh, I don't know this word. When you do it by hand, your
Oh,
own
when they do
bags.
things manually instead
When
of
do you do exactly?
automatically, that's right. It's done by hand rather than by machine.
For example, they do their own bags.
Ah, they make their own bags. Yes,
They make their own bags. They're
that would be good.
all for they when they go to the market.
Yes.
They made their own everything by I don't know how to say cotton. What do
Oh, with material or fabric. And cotton is one type of material and fabric
exactly.
which can be used, which is natural and therefore biodegradable because it's the cotton plant.
Can you spell for me biodegradable, please?
Cotton. So cotton, okay. And degradable. It's like that
Biodegradable.
in one word, biodegradable. That means
Okay.
it can be decomposed naturally, just
Decomposed. Okay.
decomposed naturally just by nature. So it just disintegrates automatically itself without needing a specific plant like the plastic eating plant to
Mm-hmm.
digest it. And then it just goes back into the ground if somebody had thrown it out onto the ground, and it actually goes into the soil and will eventually actually enrich the soil.
Enrich the soil. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes,
Enrich
as
the soil.
enrich the soil because as it disintegrates, it produces nitrogen, nitrates, and all the kinds of things that the soil needs to
Okay.
be
Yes.
rich and fertile. Yes,
Thank you.
that
Well.
would be good. Yes, that would be excellent. That would be a very good idea to have bags made out of either paper, which also obviously comes from which is biodegradable
Hmm.
because it's plant matter. It's so natural matter, and or make it out of cloth. As you said,
Because yes.
cotton, fabric, material, something like that. Basically, anything which isn't plastic is good.
So in this small village, I
Hmm.
think that is in the record Guinness. So because it's the
Oh, the Guinness
first,
Book
the
of
first.
Records.
I think so, or at least
Guinness.
it
It's
was
not
in
the
the
record
news.
Guinness. It's the Guinness
The
uh,
Guinness record.
Book of Records. So it's
Guinness
a Guinness record, but we you tend to say it's from the Guinness uh, Book of
record. Oh,
Records. I mean,
records. Oh,
yes.
records. Okay.
So usually tend to say that it's in the Guinness Book of Records as being the most this and or the best that, and then you explain the record. So
Mhm.
what does it have a record for?
I think it's because if I'm not wrong, I think
Yes,
it is
not wrong.
because
If
I'm
I'm
not wrong.
not wrong, yes,
Not
not
wrong.
wrong. That's right.
If I'm not wrong, it's because it's the first place that is using uh, all kind of material, but
All
no,
kinds. Remember plural.
all kinds of
Yes,
materials,
yes.
but except plastic.
Oh,
So they
that's
don't have
wonderful.
plastic. They don't have any
Oh, that's
type of plastic
excellent. That's
in
brilliant.
the
That's really
yeah.
good. Oh, well, I'm sure that must make a big difference then in that case. And I'm sure that if everybody follows that same example, very soon people won't be using plastic anymore at all. And that'll be
Hmm.
the best solution possible. That,
And I think at least for well, for it will be good for if every country in the world
hmm.
follow the same example.
Yes. Yeah.
But at least I see that, for example, in Europe,
Yes.
people is more
People
is
are, once again, people
people
is a
are sorry
plural word, so people
people
are.
are people are educated
Yes.
uh, to recycle.
Right.
Uh, by countries
Absolutely.
like in South America is
Hmm.
they need it. They need a lot. They need a lot because you can
Hmm.
find in a lot of plastic and rubbish
Yes.
in the streets.
Hmm.
And it's, of course, it's not something that looks good
Of course.
as
Yes.
impression, but
Hmm.
it's bad for the environment. So
Yes. Hmm. Yes, absolutely. So we already have educating the people to recycle. We have these recycling plants, which actually can feed on the plastic. We
mhm.
have people using non-plastic bags and
Yes.
avoiding plastic altogether, not just the bags, but not even using plastic in everyday life. So I think with all of those solutions, I think that should help the situation a lot.
I think as well that the mentality is changing in this
Hmm.
last has changed
Yes, has
in
changed.
has changed in the last 10 years maybe or 15 years. People
Yes.
people are
Ah, good. You
people
see, now
are
you're correcting yourself automatically now. That's good. You see, repetition is very important. And
exactly
you
yeah.
say that it's the mother of education. And if you repeat something often enough, you'll learn it and it'll become part of your vocabulary, your automatic vocabulary.
Just I'm following your advice.
Oh, well, by grace, of
You told me
course.
you told me the other day. So I
Hmm.
tried to speak slowly with my coworkers and
That's right.
try to.
Mm-hmm.
No rush myself. No rush myself.
Not
Try
rush.
not not rush myself.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
To try to
Now,
see
you
the
don't need to say, you don't, Christian, you don't need to say not rush yourself because if you are not rushing,
yes.
um, then you just say, I don't rush, or I do not rush, uh, or I am not rushing. But you don't need to refer, you don't need to use that personal pronoun myself because, in fact, uh, if it's you who's doing it, that is to say,
Okay.
if it's you that's not rushing and that you do not rush things, therefore we automatically know that it's you. So you don't actually have to say it because it's understood as being you. Now,
Okay.
if you didn't want it to be reflexive and referring to yourself in a passive way, but rather something that's more active and transitive and referring to somebody else or to something else, then you would need to use another word to designate the person or the thing that you're referring to. Like if you were saying, I am not rushing my co-workers. That means I'm not putting them under pressure and making them hurry. Or I am
Okay.
not rushing the procedure, like I am not going too fast and or making the procedure go too quickly. So then, of course, it's not referring to you, but to something else, to an object in the sentence, and not just you as the subject of the sentence. So you see the difference there when you do need to use another word after rush, when you're designating
Yes.
somebody or something, but when it's referring to you yourself, you don't need to use any other word after rush. It's just
Okay.
you yourself. That's not rushing.
Is
You
that
understand?
is that in all how can I say how can I
You,
say
well, I think what you mean is, does it, is it applicable to all the
is it
different
applicable?
verbs where it's understood that it's referring to you if there's not an object? Yes, I think you can generalize it because if you take an example, I'm eating. Well, obviously, you wouldn't be eating yourself because that would be
No, no.
auto cannibalism, which sounds absolutely dreadful. I mean,
Yes.
cannibalism is bad enough, but if it's auto cannibalism, that means like an autobiography, that's a biography of yourself, and auto cannibalism would be like eating yourself, which would be absolutely awful. So
Hmm.
we should avoid obviously saying I'm eating myself, but if we apply the rule of if it's referring to you, not putting an object or not writing or saying an object after the verb, then you're just saying I'm eating. Well, people will understand that you are the person who is doing the eating, that it refers to you, you see, and that you're just yourself eating. So if you were to put an object, then you would have an extra meaning because you could say, um, I'm eating fruit, for example.
I'm eating a fruit. I'm eating
So
fruit. Okay.
I'm eating fruit, or I'm eating vegetables, that's indicating what you're eating. Now, talking about a verb which can be reflexive or transitive. For example, um, washing. Now, if you say, I'm washing, well, basically, people will know that you're washing yourself. That it's you yourself that's having a bath or a shower. Then you are doing the washing to yourself.
To myself. Yes.
That's right. But if you say I'm washing the car, for example, like a car wash, you see, then uh, because you've added something afterwards, then we know that the washing is transitive, It's not reflective. It's not a reflexive verb referring to you, but it's referring to something else that is the object of the verb, the object of your washing. But once again, here you do not have to say, when it's referring to you, I'm washing myself. You see, because when you say I'm washing, well, people know or understand that it's you yourself that's doing the washing, and the washing is concerning you. So you see what I mean? I don't know if you can give me another verb as an example so we could try it out to see if this rule holds true in all cases and circumstances. Give me a verb, any verb that you can think of, please, Christian.
For example, tearing.
Tearing, the verb to tear. Okay. T-E-A-R, is that right?
No, sorry, care. Maybe it's C-A-R-E.
Oh, care, not tear. Care, yes. C-A-R-E. Okay. The verb to care. Right. Now, when you're saying I'm caring, now it could mean you're taking care about something. Okay, you're caring in what you're doing, in what you're saying. You're like being a caring person. Now, in this particular case, if you say I'm caring, that means you care about something. If it's just
Yes.
the word caring on its own. Well, if you care about something, you say I'm caring. You know, I care. I care about it. I just care. Just care on its own mean that you yourself are concerned about it, and you feel strongly about it. Therefore, you care. Now, if you're caring for somebody else, once again, you would need to put an object after the verb. So, for example, I'm caring for my family. I'm caring
for my family.
for my parents. And then obviously it means that it's transitive and you're applying that to somebody else rather than to yourself. But there is a slight difference there, because there is also the understanding of taking care, as well as caring in the sense of something which you feel strongly about, you see. So if it's something you feel strongly about, you would say, no, I really care. Okay, that means you feel strongly about it. You feel concerned about it. If you say, I'm caring for myself, or I'm taking care of myself, that means that you are taking yourself in charge and you're looking after yourself rather than looking after somebody else. So, can you see that difference?
Yes, what?
In caring? Yes, there's two different meanings of the word. Now, let's have coming back to our example of washing. Obviously, a child who's like 5 years old, maybe they can't wash themselves properly, and they would just be learning to wash. And in this case, you could try to convince the mother that they can do it themselves. So in this case, when then you could, talking about washing, you could say, instead of washing the car, you would be washing the child, and there you would say the child can wash himself or herself, you see, in that case. And so once again, we have the object, himself or herself, after the verb to wash. Or if you're washing the child, then you wouldn't say the child is washing himself or herself. You would say, I'm washing the child, or I'm washing him, or I'm washing her. So there's different ways that you can say it. So do you understand better now the difference between the transitive, the intransitive, the active, and the passive verbs? And when you're applying it to somebody else, then you have to specify. But if you're applying it to
Specify.
yourself, normally you don't need to specify, except in the case
Mm-hmm.
of caring, because
Okay.
there it has two meanings. When you're not saying or writing anything after the verb to care, then it means, I care. I feel strongly about this. I feel concerned about this. But if it's I care about you, or I am caring for you, or I'm caring for myself or taking care of myself, that is a different kind of caring. That means like looking after rather than just feeling concerned. Do you see that difference,
Yes.
Christian? You do.
Yes. I
Okay.
need to practice.
Oh,
That's the only
yes,
thing.
absolutely. Practice makes perfect. Absolutely right. Okay. So, do you think that's good enough for understanding the difference of when it's reflexive or transitive in a verb, Christian?
For sure, I will ask you again. I
Of
understand, but
course.
for sure, until
Well,
until I assimilate.
yes, of course, until you assimilate it completely. And obviously,
Completely.
feel free, as we're speaking, if an expression comes up where you're not sure exactly if you should refer to yourself or not just after the verb, then we can have a look again and look at that particular example as it appears in our conversation. Yes, that would be good. Hmm.
Thank you,
Ex-
Walter.
you're very welcome, Christian. So now let's continue. Oh, yes, we were talking about what humanity could possibly do in order to focus more on achieving some goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, did you have anything else to say concerning mm, eliminating
Uh,
plastic?
no, right now, no.
Okay. Well, I think you've said just about everything concerning plastic. I can't really think of anything else really that I could add to that. So, in fact, I think you've given the most complete answer possible. As far as I can see, the perfect answer. Even though there's lots of aspects to it, I think, as you say, different aspects are required because I don't think just one aspect of this solution will be sufficient. Like in the case of the plants that eat plastic, it would take too long if you only had that solution. So you need several different solutions together to be able to deal with the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you've said everything that can be said about plastics. Now, uh, I would think of something that's very up to date also, not only plastic, but this coronavirus situation. I think that the reason why we're having second waves and we're having like new cases of the coronavirus in places where they thought it was under control.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that the lockdown and all the precautions and measures and health measures and safety measures that they're applying are, well, I don't think they're really either focusing on it enough or part of humanity isn't taking it seriously enough. They are sometimes avoiding the lockdown, or let's say not respecting the rules and regulations of the lockdown. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, yes, and I saw it yesterday. For example,
Really?
yesterday,
Wow.
yes, we have a small group of six
Mhm,
people that they came in and they asked
mhm.
to have some drinks.
Yes.
We obviously gave them. I mean, we put an order with some beers,
Hmm.
but then the small group turned in a group of 30 people all together
Wow.
outside of the restaurant.
Ooh.
A huge,
Oh.
I mean, a good amount of people
Oh.
that it's easier to spread the virus
Of
or to
course,
start
that's
it.
very dangerous when you have a crowd of 30 people all close together. That's very bad indeed, of
So
course.
the managers were a bit worried about it. They tried to speak with
Yes.
this with this with
Mm.
this with these people, but
With these people, yes.
they 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 just started to laugh and
Ah.
make jokes, and it was
Mm.
bad. It was a bit uncomfortable actually.
Of course, I can imagine. That's a very delicate situation, especially when there's a crowd of 30, because if they're upset, 30 people can do a lot of damage if they feel that you're like imposing something on them which they don't approve of. So
Hmm.
if they're not obeying and following the government rules and regulations, they may not be happy that you're trying to impose those rules and regulations, because if
Exactly.
they disobey the government, which is could be an offense as far as the police are concerned. I mean, the police could intervene, because it's against the law for a group like that to be together because they're not practicing social distancing.
Exactly. They're not practicing social distancing, but the same happened
Hmm.
on the 4th of July. So
Really?
because exactly, there was Saturday, I think that was.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So most of the pubs opened,
Yes.
and a huge amount of people
Mm.
were in the streets. So,
Yes.
but it was something exaggerated, I think I would say
Exaggerated. Yes. It was
something
an
exaggerated. So
yes.
that's why, for example, in the restaurant where I'm working,
Mm. Yes.
they had a green light to open,
Hmm.
but following the rules. We follow them, but people,
Yes.
most of the customers, they don't, and we can see
Most
that
of the customers.
the customers, the
That's
customers,
right.
they don't, and we
Mm.
can see that in people's
Behavior.
behavior people's behavior
Yes.
people behavior, and some people are really worried about social distancing, to keep the
Yes.
social distancing,
Hmm.
and others not.
Yes, that's exactly right. So I think this question number 71, concerning something which not maybe all of humanity, but at least some parts of humanity are not sufficiently focused on achieving, because they don't take it seriously enough.
I
Just like
don't take serious enough. Yeah.
that's right. Just like the two examples you've given me the other day and the 4th of July. Obviously, this is something where everybody has to take it seriously, because
Yes.
it's not sufficient if 99% of the population take it seriously. It's not a question of the majority only taking it seriously. If that 1% of the population don't take it seriously, they could contaminate a lot of people, who
Hmm.
then could contaminate their families, who could then contaminate other families, and finally, all the effort that's been done by the majority, by the 99%, will have been a waste of time. Because,
The other day, a friend of mine was saying like,
mhm,
I mean, uh, mm, one of the biggest problems was the economy of
mm,
the countries.
ah,
The economy of the
yes,
countries.
that's true. Yes.
So the problem is when you have to care more about
Hmm.
the economy
Exactly.
than the health, or than
The
about the
health.
health,
Yes,
than the health,
than the health. So
than the
if
health.
you're more concerned with the health of the economy, um, more than the health of the people, then obviously you're taking a risk with people's lives uh, for the sake of the economy. So finally, it's a false, let's say, false calculation, false logic, false reasoning, because if people are in a bad state of health, that is going to put a lot of pressure and a lot of burdens on uh, the health service, especially as the virus can stay in the air for 8 hours. So once the virus is in the air, anybody who goes by within the following 8 hours are like Mm, I mean, it's possible that they might be contaminated by that virus because now they say that it stays in the air for at least 8 hours. So
Yes.
it's very dangerous then. And I mean, and the economy will suffer if there are a lot of people who are contaminated because those people cannot work. So that is a part of the workforce that's reduced. We need more people to take care of those people who are ill with the virus, which means that that's even a greater burden on the workforce and even less people available for doing other things as work. The prices, I mean, the cost of all of this healthcare will increase as well, and hospitals will be overloaded, overwhelmed, and basically all of the expense which will be a result of increased numbers of coronavirus, increased cases, will actually uh, make the economy worse. And so the economy will end up being in a worse situation rather than a better situation if people or the government concentrates more on the economy than the health of the people. Do you
And
see
the
what I
health of the
mean,
people. Yes,
Christian?
yes, I see. I see it. And I see and see it and see it now that I'm going to work with people who has people
Who have, because plural people, that's right, people who have, yes,
who have people that have lost jobs or
yes,
their companies are closing,
hmm
uh, and they have already economic problems. They don't have any salaries or any
hmm
any income.
that's right. And because they don't have any income, they don't have any salaries, and there are many people who are jobless, then the crime rate increases, and there are many more
That
robberies and
that's the problem. Yeah,
thefts
the
and
crime as
burglaries,
well.
and that makes the situation worse as well, and it's bad for the economy as well. So it's a it's like a vicious circle, really, uh, and I think that it would be better if all of humanity just concentrated on completely eradicating this coronavirus. And I know it would require a lot to completely eradicate it. But I don't know, maybe you have some suggestions as to what possibly could be done, not only for eradicating coronavirus, but also for an economic recovery, for the economy to recover. Do you have any ideas, Christian?
Um, uh, uh, Let me think about it. Maybe, but something that was the people in my country
Mm-hmm.
were trying to do
Yes.
is try to send those people
Mm-hmm.
who were at home
Yes.
during the lockdown
Yes.
to send them to the countryside. to send them to the countryside because
Well, that's excellent. That's a good idea. Yes.
excited to work in the maybe to work in the meantime in the camps, of course
Mm.
with social distance restrictions,
Yes.
uh, but with with the object with the point of help to the with the
Objective.
with the objective
That's right. Not the
to
object. We usually say with the objective. Yes.
with the objective to work in the camps, I
So
would
we
say.
don't say the objective to work. It's the objective of doing
The objective
something.
of
The objective of working in the camps. Yes.
working in the camps.
Hmm.
Um, so agriculture, I could say.
Yes,
Can
absolutely.
I say
Agriculture. Yes, that's right.
agriculture?
In the
Agriculture
countryside.
in the
Yes.
countryside. Of
Hmm.
course, we so maybe you are not helping. That maybe that you cannot help a lot, but at least you are helping to for the country to all most of the people receive food.
Yes.
That's a
That.
big problem that
Hmm.
during this lockdown in most of the countries they have had.
Yes, absolutely. And that would be,
Um,
as you say, very useful, very important if it's possible to have those people working in the countryside. It's safer there, and they can produce food, so it can be useful for the whole country. It could really contribute to the economy. I think that would be a very good solution. I think that's a very good idea, Christian. Absolutely.
so they try to do it in my country, but
Oh, they tried to do it
obviously
already. And did
they
it
try
work
to
at all?
they try to do it. Yeah, the thing is that is no, there is no resources, enough resources to do
Ah,
it.
there were not enough resources to do it.
Exactly, there
Right.
is not enough resources to do it.
Mm.
For example, in the UK, where the is giving support to people. I mean,
Yes.
they people were not working here, so but
Not working. Remember?
that not working
Not
here,
working. That's
but
right.
we were receiving our 80% at least.
Hmm.
Um, but in my country, for example, they couldn't because it's not possible. It's not possible. So there is not enough resources. The government,
You don't
the
say,
country. Okay,
you say there are not enough resources. So let me just write that down for you in the Skype chat. There are
okay.
not enough re, um, sources like that. There were not enough resources.
There are not enough resources. Uh-huh.
That's right. Hmm. Yes, I see what you mean. So it's in a situation where obviously with this lack of resources, then even though the idea is brilliant, but it's not possible to implement the idea.
Exactly.
Mm. And is there any way that these resources can be increased at all, Christian? Do you know?
The government always my country
Government.
the
The government, yes.
government always has
Always
had
have. They always have.
always always have problem to let me see mm, always has a problem to
Always have. So the
always have.
government the government has. Well, actually, you could say both. People say the government have or the government has. I think you could say both. Whether you're referring to just the government as a whole, just the organization, the institution, or the members of the government, that is, the politicians, the ministers.
Okay.
So actually, you could say both in this case. Yes. Hmm.
um they are no what they don't agree. I don't know how to say that. They don't agree. The government don't agree.
The government, they don't agree. Yes.
They don't agree when decisions like this has to be taken.
Oh, when decisions have to be taken, yes, I see what you mean. They don't agree. So it's not so much a question of the actually resources lacking in themselves, but it's just that if they can't agree to do things, in a combined, joint way in the right direction, then
Exactly.
obviously, yes, it's going to be difficult to implement whatever resources there are because they're always
Fighting each
um,
other first.
fighting each other. That's right. So they're not
Right.
really going all in the same direction, which is counterproductive, of course. Complicated. hmm Okay, well, that's great, Christian. We've come to the end of the time of our lesson. Tell me, how did you find it? What did you think of it? Was it helpful, useful, interesting for you? Did you learn some new things?
All of them, Walter, but just I
That's
think that
great.
I need my coffee. I need my coffee next time. So
Oh,
let's
I
take a
can
coffee
imagine.
before.
I can imagine. Absolutely.
But thank you,
Well,
Walter. Always is good
hmm
to have these conversations with you.
yes, for
Always I
me
learn
too.
something new.
Absolutely, and always by grace, and I'm very happy for that. Then, Christian. So enjoy your coffee now. Well deserved coffee. And
Thank
thanks ever
you.
so much for the lesson as well. Thanks to you too. And I really look forward to our next lesson together next time. That'll be great, Christian.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
You're ever so
Have
welcome. All
a
the
good
best
day.
then. You too. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Take
Cheers.
care. Bye
Thanks.
bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Bye bye.